and we're going to move into our next step. So if we needed to, after a field name was changed, make an import including that field, what we're going to do is once our template is saved, we've saved all of our fields, we're returned to our import file list, and we're going to click template. So toward the right-hand side, we've got this template link, and that downloads the CSV file that it is empty except for the column headers, our friendly names. And so long as that friendly name matches up with the friendly name that's back on our field selection, we are absolutely good to go. Just one thing to keep in mind there is that the format of the data that we're bringing in must match the format of the field in question. So if it's an integer field, make sure you're only bringing in an integer. If it is a drop-down or pick list type field, make sure you're only importing values that exist in that drop-down field.
Okay, so at least the field and the type must match with the template what we saved here at the time of export.
Precisely. Okay. So we'll download our template, and that brings us down our .csv with the same file name that we set up on the overview. Keep in mind that that file name must match 100%. It cannot be file name paren1 close paren .csv because that is not 100% match. It has to be, so in this case, it would be vendor.csv, contracts.csv. And I actually made a mistake here, and I've left it in on purpose. I built catalog, attempting to upload items to my table, items table in catalogs, but I couldn't, and I couldn't figure out why at first. And then I realized it's because I forgot to put the .csv on there. So this one would not work if I tried uploading to this. So keep that in mind, that .csv. So we've got a lot of great information. We can download that blank template from the right-hand side. If we need to edit the importing template at any point, we can do so with the paper and pencil icon for its given line item. When we are preparing our data for import and we're bringing it into our .csv template that we just downloaded, we've got some incredibly important tips. Now, these tips thankfully do live on the importing page, so you don't have to absolutely memorize them, but you do want to be aware of them. That the spreadsheet is just one row per record, and each column is one field. Ensure that the data you're importing is in one spreadsheet. It's not spread across multiple sheets in a workbook. It has to be on a single spreadsheet. Make sure, as I mentioned, all your data fields are properly formatted. This is especially important if we're copying data from an XLSX or an XLS type file to a .csv. I have found more frequently than not that a date field gets changed into a numeric string if I'm copying and pasting into a CSV. So if you're importing a date, make sure on your .csv that you're populating, our template, that it is a short date format. We absolutely have to have it in a short date format. We also have to be sure that the data that we're trying to import does not exceed the field length, so the maximum character limit that we've established for that field. We absolutely must remove any hidden line breaks in Excel before importing. There's a couple tips and tricks you can do for making sure you're finding and removing all of those. And again, that we're saving our data that's been cleaned in our templated .csv file. Once we have saved our file, we can move to processing the import or update. And in this case, we head on our side menu, on the right-hand side rather, to Manage Files. We go to Manage Files. And the first time we come in here, we're not going to have any line items. And these line items fall off after a given period of time as configured in the system. What we're really looking for is the Choose File option. So we're going to click Choose File. It opens up your operating system's file explorer. You're going to find that clean.csv file, and then click Save File, and it gives us a line item, just like I have here for my vendor.csv. Bear in mind that a manual import cannot process more than 5,000 rows. Again, up to 5,000 records can be handled in a manual process, and that's what we're talking about right now. We could let the system process one that's larger on its own on a cycle, but this is primarily about our manual process at this point forward. So we have our line item. We see that yes, no in the process. It is false. It has not yet been processed. So what we're going to do is click the cog or gear icon in the process column. We're going to begin the process, and we get a pop-up. This is what our pop-up looks like, our inbound data import review. It's always a good idea to scroll through a couple of pages of your importing data to ensure the right data is falling in the right column here, that the system is reading it correctly based on the CSV file. Once we're happy and we've verified we're feeling good about our data, we're going to click the Process button. Click this button once and only once. If you click Process more than once on an import, the system will try to import the data as many times as you click that Process button. So I beseech you, use patience while you're working with this. If it is a new import as opposed to an update, if there are lots of rows, if there are lots of columns, those factors are all going to determine how long the data import takes to process. And to my chagrin, there is very little indication that the process is actually running, that the import is occurring. What you want to do to verify that it's running is look in the lower left-hand corner of your web browser or wherever the page load happens to show and the directed page is showing. If that is showing, you can almost rest assured that the process is moving on its way. If there is a major fault in the data, you will know incredibly quickly. It will tell you almost immediately if there is a major fault with your data. And at that point, you need to troubleshoot based on the fields selected and the data as it displays in your .csv. Once we've run our process, what we're really looking for at the top of this window is in green saying successful submittal. We've got that, we can close our pop-up and we return to our list. And under status, what we really want to see is this green tick mark. That lets us know that everything was good to go. You could run into some other icons. If there is a critical error, that's the one you know about incredibly quickly, where we need to double back and double check our data. If we get the yellow triangle and exclamation point, the processed with row errors, we've had some successes, but not every single row processed appropriately. There may be a fault in our data somewhere. If we get that, we want to take a look at the summary. We'll click the magnifying glass icon. We can then review the items that did and those that did not submit successfully. For those that did not submit successfully, we can update the data and have it reprocess. Once everything's been reprocessed, we really want to see this green tick mark in the green box that all row errors have been fixed. If you had no successes, you can always come back and try it again, double checking your data against the importing template that you had built in your manage fields and add template. And I'm going to download this particular template. So it downloads as a .csv. And when I open it on up, this is what I see. So it is almost completely blank with the exception of my column headers. Again, the column headers being my fields, and they are in the very same order they are back in CobbleStone in my field selection area. So I could populate this, and I am going to see if I've already got one of these filled out. Don't remember if I've got one of these already or not. Not seeing one, so I'll fill this out really quickly. And hopefully you've already got this data ready. So again, vendor client name, employee, contract type, department, and status. These are all linked items. So the system is going to be looking for ID values. Now, I'm going to have to look up a couple of ID values really quickly, just so I know I've got legitimate companies in my system. And 240. All right, and 177. Those both look good. So we'll go with 240 and 177. Six. I'm going to apply these all to the same employee, ID 366. These are all going to be the same contract type. In my system, contract type ID number 99 is the master service agreement that I had built previously. Now I'm going to need to double check my departments as well. So I'm going to head to Manage Setup, Departments and Divisions. And I'll put all of these into development. So 153 and 141 for my executives. So 153, 144, and I'll put that one into 153 as well. Now I know off the top of my head that active is 33. So then I could go ahead and start filling the rest of this out. So I put this in short date format. And just for the sake of expediency, I'm going to bring those down. I'm going to make sure that these are formatted as short dates. This is a date field. This is a date field. I'm always hesitant about that though, so I'm going to double check my date formatting and put it in with strokes, if it will let me. It will not. All right, and description, test 1, test 2, and test 3. So now I always go to File and Save As, just to double check that it is a .csv. And I want to make sure that I can find this item again pretty swiftly. So I am going to save it elsewhere. And I'm going to just save it to my desktop for right now. So I'm going to save that, and then I can go ahead and close this. Now I'm ready to process my import. So if I manage files, I'm going to select the file, go to my desktop, select the file, click Save File, and now we see that this is not yet processed. So I'm going to manually process it. I click the cog. Everything is looking pretty good here right now. So now I'm going to click Process. You can see my indicator in the lower corner that the page is loading. And I have a successful submittal. This is exactly what I was looking for. Now if I close the pop-up, what I really want to see is this green tick mark. That's absolutely wonderful. Now, if I head into my contracts, since I just took a look and imported those rather, so we take a gander and we're going to view all contracts, and I'm going to spot check my data. So I'm going to take a look at all of my contracts. And then I'm sorting and inverting the sort. And here we can see 172, 173, and 174 as I just imported them. Now I clearly had an error when it came to a department value. So that came in as blank. It was not recognized, but I could go in and change that. But everything else that I populated is right in there for me.